you are a just independent, miserable woman until one day, you decide that you want to marry the guy that's stalking you.
Hey, can
No.
That's what they think it is.
Who's the big-headed queen in Hollywood? Is it just the Hollywood system, or is it collectively everybody who's in
probably
Hollywood?
Kathleen Kennedy.
Right.
That's an odd story.
Such an important story.
It is,
right?
I guess it was important, but I feel like if we didn't have it, we'd still be the same. It just...
Well, okay, so
you're not wrong. I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Hey, welcome back to the wacky, wonderful, wise works real talk. We are here on the studio channel.
We haven't even decided what is. Did we decide on real talk or real room?
No, not real talk, and we haven't even decided on real room either. We said we're mulling.
We're still mulling.
We're stewing.
Oh, well, I'm going with real talk.
No,
that's Josh's vote. Hey,
terrible.
I don't mind. I don't mind either of those. Any of those, actually.
Welcome to the studio channel, and welcome to the podcast
it is on the studio channel
listeners, because we are here on the studio channel.
Right.
Yeah, and we haven't rebranded yet, but we will. So, but now we're on the studio channel.
We're rebranded.
We've kind of moved everything over here, and this is the first episode on the studio channel, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Okay, cool.
So
that's exciting.
For the people who are on the studio channel and maybe aren't familiar with this, we have a podcast. We're not calling it that anymore, but we used to have it on our Wiseworks podcast channel. But now we're moving it over to the studio channel just for, for a couple of different
exposure reasons.
Yeah, exposure reasons.
And focused energy reasons, right?
Yeah,
because growing 2 channels is hard. Growing 1 is a bit easier. So that's
true.
What we're doing.
And so for the studio channel listeners, be looking out for this podcast coming out every Friday at noon. That's when it's coming out. So Friday at noon, on top of everything else that we have on the studio channel, we're also now releasing this show on this channel. So be looking out for it. It will be under the podcast tab or under the live tab, however you want to find us.
Right. So yeah, we'll be doing all kinds of cool new stuff on the studio channel, but really we're just adding one main thing to the studio channel. So it feels like a lot, and it's really just one simple thing.
Yeah. It's not that much. We're just kind of consolidating.
That's a powerful word. And it's a corporate word, consolidation.
Yes.
And I think as we consolidate, we're thinking more like a corporate minded group of men, thinking like business. And I think this is one thing I did leave out of our meetings that I think is important. And Joshua, forgive me because this is like business related, but I do think we should be more like the PBD podcast and wear suits to these podcasts. So I think if we start wearing suits, we will be taken professionally, right, and be taken seriously.
I liked the suits thing, but at work I have to wear. I've for a while, the work I do outside of Wiseworks, I have to wear a polo shirt, and I've always I'm not a fan of having to everybody kind of wear the same thing. I've never been a fan of that. So I like the suit idea, but maybe not. We'll see.
We could be looking like Jordan Peterson, just buttoned up and snazzy.
I don't think a collared like polo adds anything to anything. I'm serious here. I don't think it makes you look professional. I don't think it makes you look. It's for some reason we've stuck with the collars. Collars they're just collars. They're just terrible. A fashion thing, and it's not. I don't know. It's just a shirt.
Look, I think we were doing something correct when we were doing back in the day, the collars that were flipped up so you could see
Mhm.
the tie, and just right here, just the corners were coming down. You know what I mean?
No, I don't care
Just the
for
very
that.
corners.
I don't
No,
care
because
for that.
it
I'm just saying, look,
resembles a turtleneck, you know, a
like I
fancy
like the
turtleneck.
collars were great when we were covering ties with them.
Mm.
They were nice when we were using them to conceal the the tie around, and the tie fit nice and snug. No tie, it's just a shirt with a collar.
So you're saying you're pro collar with a tie, you're anti collar with
I'm not anti collar. I'm anti
polo?
I'm anti this like culture that the polo collared shirt is professional.
Yeah.
That you have to have a collared shirt in order to
I
look
think
like a professional.
So you think
It's not. I don't
it's
think it should be the case.
propaganda, it's
It
oppression.
I
is.
think
It
I think
is.
the
Right.
only
A
appropriate
button up
time
looks better.
Right.
Okay. I think the only appropriate time to wear a polo over a button down is when you're playing golf. The golf people they've
But you can use a
branded
t-shirt.
the golf people branded the polo shirt, and so I'm gonna give that to them. But any other time you should
Okay.
be wearing a button down.
Okay, yeah, you know what? You're right. Golf has it is kind of a brand for golf.
To wear the polo shirt, and
Right.
that's kind of the
Just
thing.
the same way like jerseys are with football and baseball. You're right.
Mhm.
But then it needs to stay in that lane.
Okay. So when you see this,
I
Wyatt, you're just
I don't
thinking
need a boss saying you need to wear this polo shirt because
right.
it's
No.
it's our
Our
uniform.
work attire, yeah.
Or work attire. It's like, dude, give me just a pullover t-shirt and I'll tuck it in.
Mhm. Imagine if all men just walked around with wearing one of these. Just
Man.
constantly wearing just useless collars.
Look,
Just
it is. It's
useless.
actually a useless collar. It's buttons at the top
Useless.
with a collar that does nothing. It doesn't
Mhm.
accentuate anything. It does. It just. I
The
don't
buttons
know. Maybe I'm being too
are
harsh
weird
on
to
it.
me. I don't understand you could kind of button up or you could kind of button down a little bit, and
Yeah, it's literally
that's
like dress up or dress down kind of situation.
but like
And
the full buttons are one thing because it's snazzy
Mhm.
to like button all your buttons, but this collared shirt with just a tiny bit of button here, it's like, can it go tight to my neck or can it go loose to my neck? And
Mhm.
that's a little odd.
see, I prefer a shirt like this. I just don't want it to be tucked in, and I don't want the collar to be there. But I like the little buttons.
I
Okay.
So
don't
you can
mind the
turn it
buttons
into
at the
a
top,
Yeah,
because
but
that's look. If we're going for fashion, if we're talking about fashion, and that's all this is
Mhm.
fashion. There's no use here.
Mhm.
Um, or practicality, then
A sweat catcher.
I prefer just the buttons for the fashion.
Okay.
If we're doing the couple buttons at the top, because you can unbutton one and I don't know, it kind of looks snazzy,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I don't know, the collar is just like this fashion um
Fashion forward.
leech. It's a fashion leech that is
Bleach.
just held. It grabbed onto the polo shirt and just held
Mhm.
on.
Right.
And it's so that people can look professional while wearing a t-shirt.
And look,
Yeah,
I think this originates with the idea of suits mean you're putting an effort
Mm.
and you're fancy.
Mhm.
So they created the polo to say, well, you don't want to wear a suit, but you want to create an atmosphere
An atmosphere
of
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 fancy.
fancy. And so that's why
Yeah.
employers and that's why, Sunday evenings at churches, all these parents
Mhm.
making their kids and making their employees wear these uncomfortable shirts that
it's
were only
And
meant to be
they're not
uniforms for
necessarily
golf.
uncomfortable. They're just it's a useless bit of arbitrary fashion.
But it sets the
that's funny.
tone, and that's the thing, it's a tone setter. It's useless, and it sets the same way like a
Mm.
tie. A tie is
But
useless. It's
even
actually
back in
it's actually a choking hazard, a tie, right?
It
well, I mean,
could be.
even
Strangulation hazard.
for some reason the tie aesthetic just works though. It's one of those fashion things that we found that works really well, that it just for some reason there's with especially with a suit and the tie, it's like there's an aesthetic thing. at least in like the 90s, when people were wearing a bunch of t-shirts over top of like the polo and you popped that collar, you were doing something interesting with it.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, when
So
people
you're
were
saying you're
popping collars, when people had
Popped collars.
frosted tips and baggy pants and were popping collars on polo shirts, Pete,
you should have been born
faction.
like 5 years earlier, so you could have been a part. You know
No,
what I mean?
he should have been born 10 years earlier.
10 years earlier, then I could have been a part of that.
And you would have had the frostiest of tips.
Frostiest of tips.
You would have had the baggiest of pants.
Baggiest of pants.
And you had the poppiest of popped collars.
Bro, I sometimes
the tallest
on my way to work.
Collar.
I sometimes on my way to work, I turn on like the old like hip hop, you know, channel, like hip hop from the 90s, and I'm just like, I'm like, this is awesome. Why did I not grow up with this hip hop?
This is funny because, me and Joseph, we kind of, I don't know when it was, early teens or I guess early high school. We kind of had this, the station. It was 90.3 on the radio. You know what I'm talking about, Joseph?
Yes.
Where it was the oldies station.
Yes.
They always played.
It wasn't even like night at the movies, Yeah,
it wasn't even like old rock or like it was like oldies station.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't 80s.
Station.
It wasn't like 80s hard rock when Kiss and Queen and all them started coming out. We're talking about like 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
We're like Peter, Paul, and Mary kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like, I'm leaving on a jet plane. That kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
That's insane.
I
can't stand that kind of music.
I had a time with it. It was fun.
We had a time. I don't know why this is always stuck in my head, but I remember you trying to explain this to Kenzie, that you listen to this kind of music, and it was super funny to me.
It's fun, and there's something time traveling about it, and it was the hot music of the day. And so if you don't appreciate it in some fashion, then you're saying like, well, that whole time period and all these artists had no taste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you got to appreciate it for what it is.
Oh, no. I'm not saying they don't have taste. I personally find it kind of boring. And I understand why it was the way it was. It was, it was nice. It was relaxing. We were kind of in a sort of psychedelic, people were not wanting to think about war and suffering. And so these calming kind of adventure-y,
happy stuff,
maybe happy songs were, what was kind of resonating with people.
Right. You didn't have to put your heart on your sleeve because you already, during wartime, it's like if you let your heart on your sleeve, then everyone has the opportunity to just fall into a deep, dark place with that. You couldn't until you got into a more privileged culture.
You can't say not hard on the sleeve, because there were songs.
Everyone had deep sadness because of lost loves and lost sons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was heart on their sleeve. Their heart was on their sleeve, but it was like about different stuff. It was, Carolina on my mind now. It was, thinking about being in Carolina.
Yeah, like
I'm definitely thinking more of the movement of that sort of 60s, 70s, definitely 70s war movement, where there was a lot of psychedelic hippie stuff coming out.
Oh, there definitely was.
It was a big culture around, not wanting to. I'm not going to say not wanting to acknowledge, but just not, not wanting to be in that mindset of, war.
We're talking about music and stuff that came out of that generation. There was a lot of, because of you're talking about war and stuff, there was a lot of stuff that was odd that came out of that era, like princess living with 7 short dudes.
Say it.
Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. That's such a, that's an odd story.
Such an important story.
It is. Right? I guess it was important, but I feel like if we didn't have it, we'd still be the same. It just
Well, okay, so
you're not wrong. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. If we didn't have it, would we?
Would be the it didn't like define anything, I don't think.
Hold on,
but,
no, it did define.
It did define some things.
All right, listen.
It didn't change anybody.
Okay.
And they're trying to do it today.
So listen, they're obviously we all know the news about they're making a non-white woman play a very white character.
She's
right?
white. She's white.
No, she's not.
She's not Caucasian, right?
No, if we sat her next to you, you'd look like the tundra.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they should have slapped a wig on you and put some red lipstick on you.
Then we'd have Snow White.
We'd have Snow White. Put a little red bow, a popped collar. You know,
popped collar. She got that polo on.
Living that clear life, but you know,
Snow White's on some clear life. Well, let me say this:
no, Rachel Zegler's not.
No, she's not. So she's about 11 months ago. She made some comments. And I think this is really when they announced the film and officially announced who she was playing and everything. And so she made some comments about the upcoming movie, which I think we should react to. And I think a lot of people already have seen, but we're going to watch them. And then we're also going to look at what some people that are connected to the original Snow White have to say. And comments. Yeah, let's just, and we'll share all our thoughts. So let's go ahead and watch.
Hold up, before. Okay, I was gonna say I really, really enjoyed the movie, the West Side Story remake done by Steven Spielberg. I really enjoyed
Rachel Zegler.
Yeah, she's not a bad actress.
I really enjoy Steven Spielberg.
She might just be a bad person.
And West Side Story was a good movie. It was a good remake. And then, you know, things are coming out now, and I don't know what happened, but Rachel Zegler just, you know,
listen,
she jumped on that Hollywood woke train.
Yeah.
Look. Let's watch this, and then we'll come back to that idea of her being a bad person. All right, here we go.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I got really emotional hearing everybody's reactions to it, which was really, really incredible. And so I feel very blessed to be a part of something that seems to be very important to a lot of people, including myself.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince, or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because like we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But it's one of those things. So true, it's an inner journey that she goes on to find her true self, and she meets a lot of people along the way that make the journey really incredible.
Interesting.
So she says we a lot. We wrote this movie. We're writing. That makes me almost wonder if whoever is involved in making this movie, if they were just like, what do you think we should do with your character? They didn't write anything. They were just like, what do you want to do? And she was just like, oh, okay, we can do whatever I want to do. And because actors don't talk like that. They don't talk like we wrote this movie to be a certain way, you know. And we're seeing a lot of that now in Hollywood of actors saying, well, when we approached this movie, it's like, I don't think you approached this. I think
anything. You just did what you were told.
you just, and the problem is, I think what's happening is the directors and writers are being like, you are just as much a part of the writing of this character as we are, and we want to make sure it appeals to your this and that. And
well, I mean, okay, I've got two things I need to say, but one is more of a question. So one is, I feel like here we're getting this. I'm taking it back to kind of what I was saying about her in general, Rachel Zegler. I think she's getting a big head because she's getting fame now. She didn't have a lot of fame, and so we're seeing this era of she's got this big head because she's got fame now. That's what I saw in that interview. And then also, Joseph, I got a question. You know, as the married one of the bunch, how is stalking your wife?
Stalking?
Yeah, how is stalking your wife?
You know,
to
really,
Rachel Zegler?
Look, when it comes to dating or when it comes to approaching a woman in period, there's always stalking involved. It just comes down to if the woman who enjoys stalking or not allows you to marry them ultimately. And so,
well, I think
men in general, stalkers. That's what we are. Okay.
I think
hey, don't. I don't want to.
I don't think that women are. I think their idea of what a relationship is, you know, you are a just independent, miserable woman until one day, you know, you decide that you want to marry the guy that's stalking you.
Hey, can you?
That's what they think it is. There's always they think that it's once I decide that this rich guy that is obsessed with me, once I decide that I want him, then okay.
Hey, you know the trend on YouTube that's like former FBI agent explains or former this person explains. Can you put as the title of this video on the studio channel, former stalker reviews Rachel Zegler's comment?
Joseph Wisener, former stalker.
Hey. So listen, I don't think. Look, if I'm trying to take as gracious of an approach at this as possible, and we're about to look at the son of the original director for the 1937 Snow White, what he had to say about Disney's approach to this new remake for live action. Not necessarily about her, but she is the voice of what the approach to the whole film is right
saying
now.
we. This is our movie that we are making.
If I'm gonna take a gracious approach, I think she is not a bad actor. She's also not a bad person. I think there's a combination here. I think she is starting to get fame. I do think that Disney makes a decision to lean this way, right? And she is the face of the project. Her personal values might align with that, or they might not. She doesn't really have a choice either way, you know? So when people are going to come out and she's preemptively saying these things, so she's going to be critiqued. But when the movie comes out, imagine how much she'll be critiqued then too, you know? How much people are going to hate on her for a movie that Disney greenlit, a story that Disney greenlit, you know?
Yeah, but you notice that anytime
she takes responsibility whether it's her decision or not.
Well, anytime an actor says, I really hope that you guys watch this movie and enjoy this movie, and you know, I'm really proud of it, and they really make an effort to like connect with the people who are going to watch the movie instead of alienate them. Whether the movie is good or not, whether their performance is good or not, people are like, well, you know, at least they were passionate about this and they wanted us to enjoy their project. Whereas when they do something like this, and it's like, well, you know, all you people who loved the original movie and grew up on the original movie and had so much fun with the original movie, that's bad.
Especially
You're bad.
That's
bad.
The fun part of the movie, which is the dwarves.
Bad. Yeah, that's bad, and we are gonna make it better.
And if you love stories,
if you
love the idea that a man would be so interested in a woman that he would pursue her to have a conversation to say like, hey, I really like you. I want to pursue you. You know what I mean? That's so incredibly terrible in their minds that a man would pursue a woman. You know what I mean?
Or if you want that, I know they want to change the language of it. It's like magic mirror on the wall, who's fairest of them all.
Yeah. Who's the prettiest, strong woman?
They don't want fair to mean attractive. They want fair to mean fair,
capable.
Capable and judgment and
What did the original creator, what did his son say?
All right, so let me share this tab for you guys. So this is an article.
What's this? Do we have a picture of this guy?
I haven't looked him up.
Okay.
I haven't looked up his picture. Look, Snow White director's son criticizes insulting Disney remake starring Rachel Zegler. So this is basically what he had to say. It's a whole different concept, and I just totally disagree with it. And I know my dad and Walt would be very much would also very much disagree with it. Hand said, I believe his name is Hand, or his last name or something.
David Hand.
David Hand. Okay, there you go.
His dad's name was David Hand.
Okay, so it's his last name. He called it a disgrace that Disney is trying to do something new with something that was such a great success earlier. Their thoughts are just so radical now. They change the stories. They change the thought process of the characters. They make up new woke things. I believe he said woke. That's crazy that he... I mean, that's awesome that he's at least pointing it out. Things that I'm just not into any of that. I find it quite frankly a bit insulting that they have done what they have done with these classic films. There's no respect for what Disney did and what my dad did. I think Walt and he would be turning in their graves. He also goes on to mention a summarized idea that this is a pivotal film for Disney as a company and for entertainment as a company, because this is the first feature film that was in an animated form. It was also the first, I believe it was the first non-black and white.
Color.
Yeah, and it proved that what is it? Movie animations could be successful.
And
they could work.
Look, Disney, they worked so hard on the original. Disney put all their eggs in one basket, and he was basically saying, like, look, my dad has told me stories how Disney company would not be around if this movie was not received or completed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Disney was literally, this is a make or break moment for Disney. And the fact that, people like Rachel Zegler and everybody involved with this film who is pro changes and pro shaming the story and the concepts around the 1937 version. It's incredibly disrespectful to Disney. It's incredibly disrespectful to Walt's vision for the company. However you feel about Walt, he did a lot of really cool things for entertainment with his company. And honestly, it is just progressively gone. That vision is long lost. What Walt Disney initially put out, that vision is gone, way gone, as far as what he wanted the company to be.
I mean, as much as we can say how good animation looks now and how great the stories are, you can sit and watch Snow White. You can. It's not like, I would say not Beauty and the Beast. Sleeping Beauty is harder to watch. Sleeping Beauty's a slower kind of movie, but Snow White is so interesting to watch. The animation is great, the colors are vibrant, and the story is simple, but it's there, and
diversity
they do so much
of characters and movement. I mean, if you have the aspect of Snow White and the Queen, and then them, like, basically the Queen becoming jealous and has like this, in some ways, Jezebel reaction to where she's like, just kill her. You know what I mean? And so she has to escape for her life. And she has this interesting connection with nature, and that's very flowery. And then we introduce these 7 unique characters
Well,
that are
and
funny and silly on
you know,
screen.
they use this for an entire movie, was the huntsman not being willing to kill her. You know, there's a lot of interesting things happening. The fact that he didn't want to kill her, he deceives the queen with like a pig's heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she makes a connection with the dwarves,
I'm
And
sure
and they
they're gonna put
invite
that
her
in
into
there.
their life, into their world,
right,
into this
and
mystical
the
world. It's like, be
prince.
a part of our community.
I don't think the prince saves her. It's the
She dies.
dwarves. Yeah, she
You
died.
know-
The dwarves save her, and the prince has just been looking for her this whole time because she's been in the middle of nowhere. But he's the one. He's the one who can wake her up.
It's
Right.
kind of interesting you bring up the huntsman. It just comes back to today's modern culture. I don't think they'll put this in the film, but the blue collar gentleman is always the guy that's willing to do the right thing. The construction worker.
Yeah, the blue-collared mercenary.
Yeah.
With that polo on.
Okay, so I did want to go into this because there's something that Emily Blunt said after in an interview
what did
with
Emily
Variety
say about this?
Oh, not about this specifically, but this is something that can be applied to this, okay? Because we're seeing it constantly, and she had a take a few years back after when she was promoting one of her movies. So this article is called "Emily Blunt Rails Against Strong Female Lead Label." It's the worst thing ever, and I'm bored of it, okay? And Emily Blunt, I think she's an incredible actor. I think she understands acting and diving into characters way more than most women actors, I think, and most men actors as well. So this is kind of a quote that she had to say. "It's the worst thing ever when you open a script and read the words strong female lead," Blunt said. "That makes me roll my eyes. I'm already out. I'm bored. Those roles are written as incredibly stoic. You spend the whole time acting tough and saying tough things. But, and let's see. The English stars Blunt as a former woman. So this is kind of when she's promoting a specific show. Let's see if there's a specific
I love a character with
aspect.
Oh.
Let's see. Blunt joins a growing list of female actors who have spoken out against a strong female lead label. She-Hulk attorney at law actor Tatiana Maslany.
Tatiana Maslany
told The Guardian in August that it's frustrating for roles to be reduced to that one strong trait. It's reductive, Maslany added. It's just as much of a shaving off of the nuance as much as a trope. So it's basically becoming a trope is what she's trying to say. So there's multiple women here, and I think that's more recently Tatiana had to say. But Emily Blunt,
she's 100% on the
woke train.
The woke train.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I think I even heard Sigourney Weaver say that she loved playing Ellen Ripley, and she loved playing these kind of stoic, strong characters, and they were great for her career, but she prefers playing the more girly, womanly characters.
Yeah.
Listen, I think
she really liked getting into those roles where she could be, very much a woman.
And it's not even so much about trying to emphasize the fact that they're a woman and so they have incapabilities. Really, I think the interesting thing is nuance. Is saying like, here's a character, here's their limitations. Gender does play into that. You know what I mean? What limitations are. What the interesting story is how do they in aspects either overcome or work alongside with those limitations to reach the end goal of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it can be personal limitations, whether you're talking about a character who has, I don't know, who's bound to a wheelchair or something. You know what I mean? What does the end of that story look like? I mean, look at John Green's story that touched everyone's hearts a few years back. What is that? What's the one? a star something something something. It's the one that was about the kids with cancer, and it's incredibly tragic.
That one.
If it comes to mind, someone shout it out.
I don't remember what it's called.
But those are it's a love story. Fault in Our Stars. It's a love story, and it's incredibly tragic. But the interesting thing is that it's about a girl and a boy who have struggles, and they're learning to enjoy life for now because they are not promised the next day or the next week. And so
nuance is important.
It is.
It's not just about, being, and the problem is, the rhetoric isn't wrong necessarily of making a more dynamic and a more interesting female protagonist.
We want interesting.
We do want interesting, but that I think you're doing a disservice to all the incredibly interesting and cool and great female protagonists that there has been, by saying, reducing them to say, like, we haven't had this, but we have. And they keep going on the same talking points of it doesn't need to be about a man. It doesn't need to be about, this or that, but, relationships are important to people. Who you love is important to you, and is should be a part of your story, and shouldn't just be sidelined as not an important part. It should be a big part.
Look, I have homework for you guys or anyone listening. If you want to be interested, go ahead and watch the most recent Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice. That is a romance drama, and it is as oppressive culturally to women as it gets. All right? Tell me that you don't find her character to be strong and interesting in that story, in an environment where the goal is not to make her a strong, independent woman, but rather to battle back and forth, with what she is, with who she loves, with her family's expectations. Tell me that's not an interesting character, and tell me she's not strong in her own right, and not having to be like this, I don't need no man kind of.
I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you guys, but in kind of the culture I was brought up in, almost I'm gonna say that there's definitely some outliers and some some what do you call it, exceptions to this rule, but a lot of the women I grew up with knowing are very independent minded, and yet also very feminine in nature, and how they, act and talk, but also very,
because it's awesome.
They're not pushovers. That's for sure.
It's awesome to be a woman for womanly things. You don't have to be a woman. Doesn't need to look more like a man to be awesome. You know what I mean? And that's what the whole thing is Hollywood wants women to be pretty men. Well, to be pretty and act like men. You know what I mean?
Well, no, they want them to be pretty and be able to do the things that men do.
It's like
and have done for thousands and thousands.
Women can do certain things, but if you define what an independent woman is, meaning like she can do flips and beat up a whole crowd of men on her own.
Based on what women can't normally do, then
it's awesome to be a woman for all the things women can do. Not awesome to be a woman because she can do anything a man can do. That's not a good stress test. Men aren't over here saying like, it's awesome to be a man because we can do everything a woman can do. I'm sorry. That's just not the case. And it shouldn't be the case the other way around. Okay. Because men and women are awesome uniquely. And it goes even further than that as individuals. Right. So there's like a broad category of what your gender is, and then there's individual categories of who you are as a person. And I think diving into that for story, who you are as a person is more interesting.
Who the person is
has nothing to do with what is between your legs. You know what I mean?
And if they were saying that, if they were talking about that, it's like, who is like,
The
who is this
intricacies, like,
person? Who's the what are the? Because I think my biggest complaint about the original movie is that there's not a ton of depth with Snow White and with the prince and who they are as people.
yeah,
That's
like
all
what
you
are
have to
Snow White's
elaborate on.
like? Yeah, what are Snow White's deep
Yeah,
motivations? Like, let's
right.
hear more of that as
And
opposed
all
to
the things that
change the
she says of
character.
like who she wants to be and what she wants to do, and what kind of the things that have been imparted on her by her family, that can all be a part of basically the original story. You just have to put it in there. You don't actually have to change the original story at all. You just have to deepen those two characters to make their conclusion more satisfying.
Which that's what
Yeah.
successful remakes do, and
Mhm.
we don't need to accomplish that by just basically saying the prince is creepy and she doesn't need the prince anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he
That's
might not
dumb.
even
And he
be in
does
it,
kind of look
according to
creepy.
her.
You had a picture.
Did I?
He
I
does
mean,
look. I don't know what the guy looks. You said you had IMDb. Are we gonna look at that?
Oh no, that's for the next topic.
Oh, okay.
But I'll pull up the prince from the
are
Snow
we?
White.
I guess let's get to that when we get to that. I guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to move us along or anything. I'm not trying to force us into the next segment or anything.
Right.
I was just
Okay.
curious.
Well, I am.
This dude is a bit creepy looking. Let me share this screen. This guy
They
is
just
a bit.
They just go and pick like
the animated prince.
Oh, the
Yeah.
animated prince. Yeah, well, he's animated. I was talking about the prince in the
live
set
action.
photos. Yeah, the live
Oh,
action.
really?
I thought you had a picture of that
Okay,
somewhere.
let's see the prince from Snow White. Let me try 2023.
Didn't you have this in the? I thought you had a slide for it.
No, I don't have a slide for it.
Oh, okay.
So you're talking
I
about the
must have
guy who
been from
plays
somewhere
him,
else.
right?
Maybe that. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to see what he.
Young Hayden.
Yeah, there was a. He's not unattractive. There was just like the way he was in one of the photos. He looked really weird. And that's what I figured. That's what I figured the case was, because he's like kind of like looking at her from the side, and he looks a little
odd,
creepy. But straight on, I figured, yeah, he's probably pretty attractive.
Yeah, it's interesting that she says that in the interview that maybe they'll just cut.
Cut all his
entire
scenes.
bit. It's like, okay, that's a really strange thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that his role in the movie is so insignificant that they might get to the edit bay and be like, let's just remove the prince entirely?
Mm-hmm.
That is funny.
And he's like so inconsequential to the story that they could just remove him completely. It's like, that's a crazy thought and a crazy thing for her to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not going to give you any problems with the story by removing him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could just do it if you want. That's crazy, man. That's
I'll tell you how they will I'll tell you how they like reconcile the name Snow White. Her father's name will be like,
White.
Leonard White, the King Leonard White.
Mm-hmm.
And he named his daughter Snow or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's how they'll reconcile it. So it'll be so unbelievably simple.
Yeah,
and
definitely. We don't want
lazy.
We don't want to enforce that this is supposed to be a Caucasian girl.
Mm-hmm.
No, and watch yourself, women in Hollywood, because the more and more we go down this road, more and more white girl roles are going to disappear. They only want racially ambiguous or just
isn't that weird?
Right?
It's becoming almost a trend to cast racially ambiguous, because you can
recast with racially
cast
ambiguous.
You can cast a person who's racially ambiguous in almost any role.
That's why Gal Gadot's getting so many roles.
Gal Gadot. That's why Oscar Isaac gets a bunch of roles. That's why Pedro Pascal gets a bunch of roles, because you can put them in anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's fun for certain things. But if we're talking about diversity here, don't we kind of want to have all the colors of the rainbow on
I mean, just
on display?
Slap a fake nose on her, and she can be a Jewish.
That's
right.
That's what Bradley Cooper's up to these days.
He's putting on fake noses. He's like,
Fake noses.
what are they talking about with the prince and Snow White? I don't care. Give me that Jewish nose.
It kind of makes me of that ridiculous scene. You know, the really ridiculous scene on Alice in Wonderland, the Tim Burton version, where like the lady's nose falls off and she's like, oh,
yes,
right.
That's Hollywood. Everybody's fake appendages are just falling off.
We should just
And they're
make
all
that a
just
meme.
white people.
Take that shot from the movie and just be like Hollywood today.
Mhm.
Right. They just have on prosthetic large areas to try to make the big-headed queen feel okay about herself. That's so funny. Who's the big-headed queen in Hollywood? Is it just the Hollywood system, or is it collectively everybody who's in
probably
Hollywood?
Kathleen Kennedy.
Right.
Or I mean, probably the heads of these companies. I mean, like the head of Disney, the head of Disney boards of, or Disney, Warner Brothers.
So you're telling me these Hollywood strikes are just them choosing to take off their appendage, their fake appendage, and be like, we want to be normal.
Maybe.
No, I think they want more. They want more appendage. They want
give us bigger appendage, please.
Bigger appendages.
All right. Speaking all this of Rachel Zegler, I wanted to also, first say thank you, Shelby.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Thank you.
I was about to say,
Shelby.
is Rachel Zegler one of our Patreon supporters?
We wouldn't. I would have totally
She's like, not anymore.
Look, I would be a sellout. I would be a sellout and just not ever mention any of this if she was on our Patreon.
If she was. Oh my gosh.
Because I'm not gonna.
We lost.
I would disagree with her. I would disagree with her, but I wouldn't knowingly try to talk. I would hardcore disagree with her, but I would not bring up that as someone who is financially supporting the show, I would not do a whole segment on her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Joseph is
would you?
essentially a yes man for anybody who's a Patreon supporter.
I'm a yes man if you pay me.
So if you want to be a yes, if you want to be a yes man by Wiseworks, then join our Patreon.
Yeah, you'll be the ultimate yes man. And if you call me a sellout, if you call me a money hungry content creator, if you call me all these things, that's your opinion.
Yeah, and you can have those opinions on the Patreon.
Yeah.
But guess what? Rachel's not on the Patreon, so we talked.
Not yet.
We'll get her though. Like 40 minutes on just her.
We'll get her though.
So listen, thank you, Shelby, for being a Patreon supporter. She enjoys all kinds of cool stuff over there on Patreon, including the podcast early, including an exclusive pre-show we do every week that's only on Patreon. We talk about wild stuff over there and have arguments and really let our hair down, if you want to, if you can use that metaphor. So go check us out. We have other stuff there as well as archived catalogs of content. So
some of us do. Some of us let our hair down. Those of us who still have the long hair.
I've been letting my hair down for
abandon the
years.
culture. You abandoned our culture.
I'm countercultural, bro. Countercultural. Thank you, Shelby, for being a Patreon supporter. Speaking of Rachel Zegler.
Yeah, I mean, is this the Rachel Zegler episode?
Oh, yeah.
Did you just
this guy? This is the picture I saw. That's not the prince in the new movie, is it?
No. This is the guy.
What is this
Hunger
from?
Games.
This
is a
Hunger Games.
No. This is young President
I was like
Snow.
I was like, if this guy is the prince, he's looking kind of. This
is what you were talking about?
Yeah.
No, this is from The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is the man who plays President Snow before he was president.
Young President Snow.
So let me read the synopsis. Or actually, you know what?
Star Trek pin on.
Can you guys read? Is this large enough for you to read it?
Well, we can try.
Let's see.
What is it that
I'm trying to share my screen. Hold on. Share. Here we go. Is that large enough for you to read? Because I always do all the reading. Can you read that?
Let me see. Let me pull it up.
Can you see it, Wyatt? I can't see that good enough to read.
It says, oh my gosh, this name. Coriolanus?
Coriolanus Snow.
Coriolanus Snow at 18 years before he would become the tyrannical president of Panem. Young Coriolanus is handsome and charming and
Oh, there we go.
Though the Snow family has fallen on hard times, he's seen a chance for a change in his fortunes when he is chosen to be a mentor for the 10th Hunger Games, only to have his elation dashed when he is assigned to mentor a girl tribute from impoverished District 12.
All right. So hearing that synopsis of the story, it looks like we're going to get really deep into a new character from District 12. We're diving deep into the motivations and the background of the evil President Snow from the Hunger Games. This is, 60-something years before the events of the Hunger Games with Katniss Everdeen. From this synopsis, from these concepts, are you excited? Do you want this?
So I think it'll be good as long as we do that. We follow President Snow, and we don't try to, create this character that Rachel Zegler is going to be playing to create another female-led movie, and it be
another Katniss Everdeen.
I have no problem with a female-led movie but I don't want that to be the motivation.
I'm more interested in his motivation.
Yeah, because we know his character, and they can say, "Oh, this will be a President Snow movie." It's just a young President.
With
Snow.
that said, I think we're going to be diving into both. I think we'll, at least on the surface, we'll be able to see a lot of President Snow as well as a lot of this new character, because the runtime is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Woof, woof. That's long.
Indeed, that is almost 3 hours.
I'm already tired by hearing that.
Based on the book content, a lot of people are saying that's not enough time.
Right? Yeah. It's interesting. It is interesting casting for her character to be coming from District 12. Just because how we know what District 12 is. It's all
coal miners.
It's the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
It's like it's like you see in the first movie, they're like in Pennsylvania, West Virginia.
Yeah. It would be a more interesting story, and that I would love is a President Snow story, but also maybe District 1 or 2 to explain the whole, career path districts, because
I would love to see something like that.
1 and 2, there are career path districts where they volunteer every year. Like, you are born and you are raised to go to the games. They're your
gladiators
in life.
Yeah, they're gladiators
to go to the games, and so you train for your basically whole life till you are about to age out, and then you volunteer, and so I feel like that
we get it.
Explain some stuff.
I don't think I personally don't think that's a good idea. And
why?
Because it's not interesting. The reason why they chose to do District 12 is because it adds new depth to the relationship President Snow has with District 12 already when we get to Katniss Everdeen's story, right?
Yeah,
that's the intention behind the writers.
Personally, I know that's the intention. I agree with Josh. It would be more interesting to see what's going on in the other districts. And
we
like
get
you said,
enough of that inside of the books of the Hunger Games. It goes deep into those characters.
That's like
wrong.
It goes deep enough. It goes deep
That's
enough.
like saying there's 12 kids, but you're only going to follow one kid.
Right.
The whole
no,
time.
There's
follow the other 12.
so many stories. There's so many kinds of stories that you can tell with what they've set up in the lore, and going back to District 12 again.
Yeah.
We're going back to Tatooine.
You're wrong.
This is the crux of this story is the contentious relationship between the districts, specifically District 12, which has always been the biggest issue when it comes to President Snow, and the Capitol, right? It's about this. If you talk about locale, it's the problems between the Capitol and District 12. That's the whole story.
No.
The Star Wars story is not about the problems that happen on Tatooine. You know what I mean?
I mean, it kind of is.
If they want to tell a story, Okay, let me change my answer. Maybe don't make it 1 and 2. Make it District 13. Isn't that the one that got bombed and got?
Yeah, that's the one that got
It
destroyed.
is.
Make her part of District 13.
Well, we
which
don't
would
know
make way more sense.
Hold on, we don't know the books, and I can't remember at what point in time District 13 was bombed. That might be included.
That's why they started the Hunger Games, to remind people about what happened with District 13.
Okay, so
maybe they're probably going to allude to that a lot in this film.
Maybe.
Yes,
I think this is the 10th
they will
Hunger
100%. They will 100%. I'm not angry at it. I think it's probably going to be kind of played out. We're going to see a lot of member berries.
Yeah. See,
and things where it's like, look, this is what's going to happen in the future because of the other movies.
That's boring.
Looking at this cast list, who are you most excited?
Peter Dinklage. He's one of my favorite actors. He's so good.
I like I like Jason Schwartzman. I think that's a good cast for the Flickerman patriarch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good cast. I love Dinklage.
Dinklage is good.
He's a good actor.
We did talk about this on our reaction video, but Viola Davis.
Well, here's the thing. Viola Davis is similar to the Rachel Zegler thing. And a lot of people, I'm sure, probably listen to this podcast and be like, dang, they don't have anything good to say about women actors. Well, we do agree in general. I think the problem is all the women that adopt the really weird ideologies and then flaunt them. Viola Davis is in that category, hardcore. She is a good actor. She's really, really a good actor. She can embody a part, and that I don't want to take away her skill, but she does choose outside of her roles and sometimes inside her roles, like with Woman King, to just play the strong, woke woman. Doesn't matter what the character is.
Yeah, she's not a bad and I think she's probably going to do a similar portrayal for this character.
From what? From
what I saw in the trailers.
Oh, when you say similar, what are you referring to? Like
leader woman. She's going to be leader woman.
Gotcha.
Leader woman.
Which is a lot of leader roles.
Which is a lot of Amanda Waller in Suicide Squad. She's leader woman.
Mm-hmm.
Woman King. She's leader woman. She plays leader woman a lot.
Right. It's probably just because her presence and her stare.
She has a commanding presence. She does. She really does. And you kind of play into what you're good at. And there's nothing wrong with leader woman role. It just it can get played out if you're not careful.
I'm not thrilled about. I'm not incredibly thrilled about the performance we're going to get from Viola Davis in this movie, but also I can't hate on it either, because I think it's going to be as interesting potentially as someone like, Bern Gorman,
Gorman always gives an interesting performance. Creepy guy.
Right.
Creepy bad guy. He's always so good.
I think Josh was onto something when you say who's going to be the real standout here. I think Dinklage is probably going to be the standout.
Dinklage is going to be standout. I would love Viola Davis to prove me 100% wrong, and she's gonna
play an interesting character. It's probably
her name is Dr.
Be
Volumnia.
I would love her to prove me wrong, but I'm heavily looking at Dinklage because I think he has always been a good actor, and I know Dinklage is going to give a good performance.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know who, I'm guessing Tigress Snow is Coriolanus' sister, played by Hunter Schafer.
Probably.
Probably his sister or cousin. I love advisor characters. Characters who tell the main characters, like, what are you doing? Are you falling in love with this person?
Like Woody Harrelson in The Hunger Games.
Why aren't you need to be more careful. I love those characters, advisor characters who question the main character's motivations, who give them moral quandaries and things to think about, I think can be strong characters. And
yeah, we're talking
I think Woody Harrelson did a really good job. I think Elizabeth Banks did a really good job with her character as it developed.
She's the one who played Effie, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's interesting those sort of side, like Cinna, those side characters who give advice, who question, what the main character is doing.
In the book, Cinna was probably one of my most interesting.
Oh
characters.
yeah, he was one of my favorite.
Was
and
awesome.
even in the movies, he was,
comes through
Lenny Kravitz comes through strong.
Mm-hmm.
He really does.
Well, I think when he gets killed, though, spoiler, when he gets killed, beat up as she's going in the second movie, in the second book, when she's being already in the tube that's sending her up into the Hunger Games, and then they come and kill him right in front of her when she can do
They
nothing.
don't, though. Well, never in the books, they never answer that if he died or not.
Well, yeah, so they implied it to really mess with her. So there's something that Snow
that was a part of it. There was a big psychological thing about it.
Yes.
Is he gone? That nobody will ever know.
I will say that book hit harder in that moment as far as emotional impact than the movies did. Yeah. But the movies made it
they had a lot of personal conversations.
Yeah. I am interested in Snow's character, his actor Tom Blythe. I don't know a lot about him, and I don't think I have good reference.
Can you click on that actor? I'm curious what he's been in outside of this. See if I've seen him in anything.
Let's see. So he was in Robin Hood with Russell Crowe,
which Feral Child.
Kind of forgettable role.
Probably
he must have been young then.
A kid, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Feral
a lot
Child
of
number 4.
Feral Child.
I mean, he doesn't have a ton of acting.
Looks like a lot of British stuff. I'm assuming he's somewhat British.
So I'm gonna guess this is probably, and the last 2 things were shows. 1 episode, 8 episodes. It looks like Billy the Kid was a big role for him, and this might be his next big breakout thing, right? So relatively new as far as on a lot of people's eyes. Maybe he just shines as bright as someone like Austin Butler, and we see him in a lot of stuff. We'll see.
That would be cool. I always love seeing a standout performance, somebody coming up who hasn't been in a ton of stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're on the scene. They're making waves. Yeah. It's like that kind of happened with I want to say that happened with Tom Holland. He was just there all of a sudden.
Yeah, he got everything.
And he had been there. He had been in Hollywood.
Yeah,
we had seen some of the things he was in, but then bang, he was just
there.
He was on the scene.
Yeah. Right. And so we'll see about this Tom Blythe. I'm curious. His performance in the trailer looks interesting. Him portraying Snow. I hope. I haven't read the book, and I did read all the Hunger Game books, but I haven't read this book. And I'm debating if I am, and if I do read it before or after, I don't know yet. So so if I don't know exactly where the story leads, and I don't want to know. If you people want to spoil it in the comments, please don't. But I hope it takes a really dark turn. Like, I really hope that his character ends with like, what is it? Like, the Empire Strikes Back. You know what I mean? Something that's just the end of the movie is just, and here comes this character who is in power for the next 60 years.
So
you know what I mean?
What you're saying is we need
That's what I want to see.
The end of The Godfather, Michael Corleone becomes the Godfather, and the last scene is him kind of going and being the Godfather to his sister's child. But as that's happening, we see like him killing like 20 different people, the heads of the families. And
I want to see the cleverness of this character really coming out.
I would also like to point out that he looks very snazzy here in this picture, and he has the appropriate length of collar.
That's a good length collar.
I kind of like that length in a collar. If you're gonna button it all the way up, I think that looks good.
Okay, hear me out. this is what they need. They need him making a toast after the Hunger Games is over, being like, that was a good year. We had a good rise with the Hunger Games, and like that was
Good rise,
and
right.
or good year of Hunger Games, and then they take a drink and everybody's being choked out because we know that President.
So you want it to be like the end of House Frey kind of scenario.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to see some
Like-
Game of Thrones type thing in this.
him making a toast and everybody is dying
Mhm.
because they're drinking poison, and then we see his glass and he's like got a little bit of blood in it because he had the poison too. But
Yeah.
right.
Because he was willing to go the distance to get what he wanted.
Mhm.
And that would be interesting. I think if they do this right, if he performs this correctly, it could even add gravitas to Donald Sutherland's performance in the original movies, who we watched those recently, and my gosh, Sutherland is good.
He went hard in that role.
He's ominous, and
he's a good actor.
He's a solid presence on screen.
Look, if you read the book of his description and then see him on screen, perfect match. Perfect match. He's like, it's like to your face, he seems harmless, but there is something behind his eyes that he is a monster. You know what I mean? So it's just beautifully done by him. And so I hope we get to see some of that here, or at least like the rise in that psyche for his character. Yeah, but I think we need to move on. We got 2 more things to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I told you we got a dense podcast.
Are we talking
today.
about Kirk Cameron or no? Is that next?
Yeah. So there's an interview that Dallas Jenkins, the director of The Chosen, creator of The Chosen, sat down with Kirk Cameron on his show, and they had an interesting segment. It was kind of like a really good synopsis of where, the issue with getting inspiration from the Bible and outside of the Bible getting inspiration, and kind of like the contentious relationship that has in Dallas's mind. And so he's talked about this plenty of times, and we haven't really talked about it at length. And so I want to watch a clip. I want to hear him explain it, and then I want us to share our thoughts a little bit about this, because he summarizes it well. I think after saying it for so long and explaining how he views this, I think it's a really good synopsis. So let's go ahead and watch this, and then we'll I'd like to discuss it with you guys.
Apart from the Bible, where else do you gain inspiration for making The Chosen?
Well, yeah, the Bible is our primary source of truth and inspiration. But obviously, when you're doing 8 episodes per season, and the Gospels weren't written in TV show format. Honestly, the bulk of our inspiration comes from our own lives, humanity. One of the number one things people say after watching The Chosen is it feels human, it feels real, it feels like I could place myself, I could see Jesus through their eyes. And so one of the things I think we're really trying to do is connect the fact that the people 2,000 years ago had the same questions, struggles, doubts. They dealt with oppression, they dealt with socio-political divides, they dealt with struggles, doubts, all of that stuff that we face today. And when you can realize that, it makes it even more powerful. That said, when you see, for example, Simon and his wife Eden at home having an argument or having a moment of romance, there's a lot from my own life as well. You'll see, when you're seeing some of that stuff, you're going. In fact, some of our crew members, when we were filming some of these scenes, were going, "Do you have a recording at my home right now? Like this, this marital argument sounds exactly like what we have when I come home from a trip." Or in the case of Simon and Eden, Simon's been called by Jesus; he's in ministry. She supports that. She loves that. She's proud of her husband, and yet when he's gone for 3 weeks, that doesn't make it any easier. Just because she's supportive of it doesn't make it easier. So when he comes home and some of the tension that they have, that comes from my own life.
So that brings a unique challenge that I've faced it in some of the projects that I've tried to do, not nearly to the extent that you are, but how do you navigate being historically accurate and also being creatively fresh?
Before we go on, because it's a little bit longer clip, I wanted to see what you guys' thoughts were up to this point.
It makes 100% sense.
I've always
it
said,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I've always said watching the show that the realness they bring to these characters work. I mean, that's why I think the moments that are probably my favorite are these, interactions of, like you said, Simon and his wife, and the moments of which disciple had the bum leg or it was limping and went to Jesus and said,
little James.
Yes, little James. He said, "How can with this you're healing everybody, but you won't heal me?" And that moment, I think, was my probably one of my favorite moments of the show so far, because it's not in the Bible, that conversation, but that makes so much sense, and it felt so real
because we've had those questions. We've
Yes.
as a
resonate.
Christian,
Yes.
you've prayed that, I'm sure. Why is everybody else seeing this success, or why is everybody else
Yes.
healed and I'm not, and I'm and so pulling those real moments from our lives and what we experience. And I don't think it just resonates with us as Christians. I think that can resonate with everybody. Everybody has those moments of
Right.
a real interaction that you have with your
Yeah,
friends or with your wife, or however it is. And that's cool. They have to be able to tell a biblically accurate Bible story, but also a story that's accurate to the human experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's about to cover this. So let's
Go ahead.
actually
Let's watch the rest.
let's hear what he has to say, and then we'll come back to that, because he's about to jump into that content.
I know there are some people who are only comfortable with seeing the words of Scripture reenacted exactly. That's been done multiple times. The Jesus film, Gospel of Matthew, all that, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I would contend that most people would agree that watching those, especially when you've read the stories, is interesting, but not as engaging as just going ahead and reading God's word. Now, when a pastor gets up to preach, he doesn't literally get up, read a passage of Scripture, and sit down. He gives you historical context. He gives you cultural context. He gives you, and sometimes he'll even say, a pastor might even say, put yourself there for a second. Imagine what you might be experiencing. Right. Now, that's not at all to contradict or pull you away from God's word. It's to give you context that the readers at the time did have. Because a lot of these books of the Bible at the time weren't, like when Matthew was writing his gospel, he didn't know it was going to be part of a larger Bible. He was telling his story, giving the gospel according to Matthew, and the readers at the time actually understood and had context for some of the things he was referencing that we don't have context for. Now, here's a very important question that we ask ourselves every time we write anything, because to your point, it is scary, it is dangerous. How do we navigate it? Want to be honoring to the Gospels, but we're also creating a TV show and being creative. Our operating question is this plausible? We know that not all of it is factual, but is this plausible? And that includes historical, cultural, but also, does this fit within the character and intentions of Jesus in the Gospels? I make it very clear. I'm going to make it clear right now. I'm not God. The show isn't the Bible. Jonathan, Rumi.
Isn't that Jesus?
We make that clear all the time.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, just in case people were confused.
Just in case.
But we make that clear all the time. We don't idolize the show. The show is not a replacement for Scripture. Never will be, never should be. However, we do think if it's plausible, if this does fit within the character and intentions of Jesus in the Gospels, we believe that we can do a first-century drama that uses the Bible as its primary source of truth and inspiration, and hopefully ultimately draws people closer to Scripture.
Which is why you can add characters in there, like Eden, the wife of Peter. You can create things that we don't read in the Scriptures, but are plausible and may help us to relate even more to what we do read in the Bible.
Right. Now, if we were doing that and then changing what was in the Bible, this doesn't feel very relatable. Let's change it.
Yeah.
Let's make Jesus a little softer. Let's make Peter, let's have him not go through these struggles because we want to treat him differently. That would be a problem.
All right. So that's kind of the segment. But so I thought it was he gave a good synopsis of the approach, because I feel like even on YouTube today, we are still constantly at least I'm still constantly seeing people making videos
Talking about this,
or
yeah.
talking about it, being like, it's not in the Bible. Every time when a new season's coming out, every time a new episode comes out, there's someone over there saying like, this is not biblically accurate because this character is not even in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to at least talk through it with you guys. Like, do you agree with his take? You know, is it plausible? That's like you start with the grounds of the Bible is the inspiration for the direction of the story, and then is it plausible to add context that not necessarily might be in the Bible? You know what I mean?
I think it works, and I think I also like it because it does apply to us, but also this is something like he said, we've seen the Jesus story. He is making a Jesus story or a Bible-based show, biblical show, but he's trying to do something different, or he's trying to make. I would say, if I was going to define The Chosen, I would say it's like during the time of Jesus and during that time, but I wouldn't say maybe it is about. I wouldn't fully say like, oh, it's the Bible. You know,
Right.
it's The Chosen. It's the followers of Jesus. It's not about Jesus. That's why in some scenarios, Jesus, they don't focus on Jesus. Jesus is not the main character. Even we've talked about this before, where we're predicting like the episodes where later on, probably the last season or the second from last season, where Jesus gets crucified, it probably will not be about the crucifixion as much as what are the disciples doing during that time of the crucifixion. It probably it'll show us, but I don't think it's going to be focused. This is not another Passion,
and obviously two huge events during that period is Simon Peter denying Jesus three times, and then also Judas betraying and then going and committing suicide. So those are the two big follower events. So it'd be interested to see what else is wrapped around that. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think Wyatt, what are your thoughts? Because I know we all have a variety of opinions here, and
I'll be right back. Quick.
Go ahead, Wyatt.
I'm no, I'm glad that he's making a point to let people know that the things in the show are not, necessarily scriptural, that they are having to be creative with what they do and with what they create. And it's important to recognize that this isn't the Bible.
Right.
This isn't, this isn't, it's based on the Word of God. And so while, yes, all of the things that should be important to Peter in the Bible are there. That's important. That every bit of like kind of who he is in the Bible is in his character in the show, but that they also have to write a character for the show, and they're using his personality that we know of based, from the Bible. It's
to add like marital problems.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
To add things that don't contradict, but also
are plausible.
Help us to relate to his character. Because that's what you want to do with a show like this. It's called The Chosen. You want people to relate to those characters.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's talked about it.
Right. And there's so many different elements. I know we talk a lot. He mentions Simon and the relationship with Eden, but there's so many different layers to all the different stories they're telling, even in just season 3. I mean, we're talking about, I think it's Andrew, but even just like the relationship that he has with John the Baptist when he's in prison, you know what I mean? Or getting into dang it, I can't remember everybody's name. I know their face, but the guy who's interested in the girl and he wants to ask the father for the blessing, and they got like a kind of fun, attracted, they want to kind of court each other, energy with each other. There's so many different stories with all these different disciples. You got the zealot dealing with his past, because the Bible just mentions he was a zealot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't go into that any further. But what did that look like potentially for him as a disciple to have a past with the Jewish zealots who literally had assassination plots and carried out these crazy tactical missions, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so does that past follow him into his ministry, into his discipleship with Jesus? It's like there's all these plausible concepts that these characters are built around that and I think the most interesting one, in my opinion, is how deep they get into the relationship Matthew has as a tax collector to not only the Jewish people, but then with these other guys,
Yeah.
that
The Romans
he's
and
in
stuff.
close with the Romans, with the other disciples, everybody. I think Matthew's character is one of the most interesting disciples. And I think Judas, as we get into season 4, I think Judas is going to become even more interesting as well,
Yeah, I also think so. I'm very much looking forward to this next season, and am curious what direction they take it. So I'm really looking forward to it. They haven't released any dates yet, have they? Because they're done filming.
Yeah, they're done filming, and honestly, they start releasing it once they get things edited, and not like get everything edited and then release it. So literally they'll release an episode and say, all right, well, we're still editing number 2. And then like a month and a half later, release episode 2. You know what I mean?
I'm
So
curious if that's
they're
going
not
to
on a
change at
crazy
all,
schedule.
because
It
they're
probably
wanting
will.
because it's gotten so big, and they want to premiere it in theaters and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's talks of
So
every episode coming out in theaters, now that they
yeah,
have
so
Wow.
that's probably going to change with their
It
plans on
will.
how they're going to release it,
It
because
will,
it's so
because
big now.
if they say, okay, we're going to release every episode, well, then Lionsgate's going to be like, all right, well, we definitely have to have everything done, and then we'll create a theatrical run schedule, and then you guys can decide after that when, like, your app release schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to get more structured on release, but there's no dates mentioned. The only thing that's mentioned is potentially all episodes having a theatrical release, like they did with the first and last episode of The Chosen from last season. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I'd like if they're doing every single episode, I'd like the tickets to be a little less. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Because if I have to buy 8 to 10 tickets to see all the episodes, and they're each like $15 a pop, I'm gonna be like, dang, man,
Dang.
that's a steep.
Yeah, I don't want to go watch a 30-minute episode for $15.
Yeah, I think
I would rather just support the show on the app.
Right. You know what? I think they actually combined like either 2 or 3 episodes into one theatrical viewing.
Okay. Yeah, that's
that would
better.
make more sense.
So that
way
makes
we
more
get
sense.
a feature length thing.
Content, right?
Yeah, content.
So maybe there'll only be like 3 theatrical showings, but all of the season is there. You know what I mean? We'll see. Anyways, that's all I think that is interesting, and it's something that he keeps on talking about and keeps repeating himself. But I think in some fashion that was probably the best synopsis of that concept that I've heard him say. And I have one last thing, because I know we're getting a little long, but I have one thing I want to bring up and kind of share, get you guys' thoughts on, because it's popular, it's going around. So the creator, new movie, Gareth Edwards, director, he did Rogue One. There's another movie he did that is really good that I can't remember. And what was it? And well, Greg Fraser and Oren Sofer were the director of photographies for this movie. There is something interesting that has been discovered about the trailer. Okay.
What's about the trailer?
So in the trailer, Have either of you guys heard about this?
No, not at all.
Okay. And honestly, I had to do some research on this because I'm not super caught up with stuff. So in the trailer, there's like kind of close to the top, there's like B-roll of explosions and stuff. All right. Apparently, so Corridor Crew found somebody talking about this on Reddit, and then they kind of brought it to light, and now it's gone around a lot more. I don't have their video just because I don't want to just hear their conversation on it. They were kind of bummed, as well as, and so I'll show you this little video though. Okay. So the basic idea is that there is a shot in the trailer that basically takes a real life explosion. What is it in Beirut that happened? I think a few years ago, and there was some security footage that saw the explosion, and they basically created a scenario that looks exactly the same. So let me play this little side by side of the Beirut explosion and then the shot of the explosion that happens in the trailer. So let's see. I'm going to mute this just because I don't know if that music's copywritten. But
yeah.
So it is for sure a copy because you guys see my mouse right here?
Yeah.
So like right here, the buildings are structured, the composition's structured the same, but like this thing right here, see that little thing that it just went by at the top of the building? Let's see if it pans. It's basically exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Right there, that thing right there. So look, see that? That's for sure. It's exactly the same thing. And so it's pretty much confirmed. They use this as a model. And a lot of people don't know how to feel about it because it's like, well, this is a real tragedy. You know what I mean? 200 and something people died and like 7,000 people were injured. And so they're kind of like saying, well, if we're entering a entertaining movie for like for sci-fi that's people are supposed to go and enjoy, it kind of feels wrong. It feels wrong to include footage from a real life tragedy. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't have a problem with this. I think I don't want to make light of the situation and what actually happened, but I don't have a problem with this.
218 deaths in the explosion, and it happened in 2020.
Well, I think we need you kind of have to recognize that art mimics reality, and the inspiration for what something looks like, it does come from real life. How many nuclear explosions have we shown on screen? How many tidal waves? How many just horrifying things that we have seen, that are the basis. And maybe kind of doing this almost shot for shot remake is a little bit disingenuous, perhaps to the folks who were affected by that tragedy. It is important to realize that we do take inspiration from these things, and I think as long as they do it in a tasteful, as long as they do it in a respectful way, to recognize that this is a terrible thing that happened,
I mean, in like the story, like in the story,
it's in the story, it's a terrible thing that happens, and not like, oh, sick, this explosion is so awesome,
right?
But
do you think with a trailer, with it opening with, fictionalized explosions,
I don't think this should have been
with
in the
a real one?
No. I don't think it should have been in a trailer.
It was. That's and I think that's the big controversy is like, it's like, especially in a trailer is supposed to be a spectacle to get people excited for the movie, and to utilize it's like, it's not that they couldn't have created something that was similar, but they literally they changed like what the buildings kind of looked like, but they didn't even change the shape of the composition or how everything. I mean, even like there's like an atmospheric kind of like streak across the sky in the real security footage that they kept in, you know.
Yeah.
It's like down to the details of composition. They didn't want to change it, and they didn't have to do that. It's almost like someone got lazy and was like, well, let me just use this real footage and I'll just change what the buildings look like, but it'll save me time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It could be, you know, we could be at a point with, you know, whoever this director is, whatever he sees in his vision, where he's like, if it doesn't look like, you know, reality, I don't want it. And that can maybe be a bad thing. He's like, so leave that streak in. So
all right,
we'll see.
so Gareth Edwards, he did the first Godzilla, which I really liked, that you don't like because you feel like
it's not that I don't
you're
like
looking
it.
at
I
the,
just think I think it's not, I think it is a fact that Godzilla changes sizes in that movie like 3 different times.
yeah, he does, but I love it. I think the how we see Godzilla, the majority of the film is the monstrousness of him by constantly looking up at him, or like when they're jumping out of the airplane, you are like next to him and he's like clouded in
and I
smoke.
like that. That's really
I
cool. That's one of my favorite
really
scenes.
cool.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I just wanted more Bryan Cranston and more Godzilla in the movie.
Yeah. I don't like zooming out so far to like see these titan monsters. So like zoom out so far so they just look regular size. I don't like that. I love the fact that
at this point the monsters are more interesting than the human characters. I'm okay seeing the perspective of the monsters from the humans as long as the humans are interesting.
And I think that's what the first Godzilla was.
If not, show me monsters.
This is not about Godzilla. This is about the creator.
The creator, yeah.
Right.
So he
So
directed
Gareth
the
Edwards
first
also
one.
directed the first one. He came out with a bang. I thought it was awesome. He also did Rogue One with Greg Fraser on Rogue One, and now and he did another movie he did the visual effects. So he didn't direct another movie called Monsters. He's done a good bit, but those are his most well knowns. And now the creator. So so he does seem kind of like he's an interesting artist director. And so I don't know a lot about him. I guess Greg Fraser likes working with him. And so so we'll see what this movie ends up being. And yeah, I mean I do have a gut reaction to them using real life tragedy footage.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think that's great.
It's not a good look, definitely.
It's not a good look.
Maybe he didn't even know about
there was
it.
some more. Yeah, I wish there was some more information on that.
Maybe they need to address it at some point. Maybe if it wasn't his choice, maybe we need to hear that it was someone else's. Because also, like, why would you put it in the trailer? Like, unless the movie's full of this, unless the movie intentionally is like, we cross-cut fiction with real life, and that's the interesting part of this movie. Like, I don't know if that's the intention, but if it was like this the only shot, how did it end up in the trailer?
He clearly has a passion in his movies for the way that destruction looks.
Yeah.
And you know, the way Godzilla comes out of the water, the way, you know, the buildings break, the way the things burn and explode, and you know, even in Rogue One, when they drop the big explosions and things, he clearly has a passion for this, you know, big scope, sci-fi destruction.
Right.
And it's absolutely possible that in the making of this, that just something got lost in translation. And when looking for reference for realistic looking destruction, that, you know, the artists, you know, took almost side by side inspiration from real life and then just put it in the movie. Right.
That's true. And it's hard to know until it's addressed and we get clarity on it. But, you know, that's all I got for today.
Okay.
I'm curious to discover what's going on with the creator. It's probably that and Dune. Did you guys see that? I did a video that Dune's probably going to be delayed.
Yeah.
Did you really?
You didn't
Yep.
see my video?
Why would Dune be delayed? It's like mostly
Because of the
finished.
strike.
It
of the
might
Yeah, but
be
it's finished.
but
It does that. So you got to watch my video. I guess it's now on this channel. Since
I guess
we
they
have a
can't do
number.
any pickups or anything if they need to.
Well, no, it's done. The main thing is that the actors cannot participate or promote or be involved with anything for the movie during a strike. And so they want the Austin Butler, the Florence Pugh, the Timothy, and the Zendayas out there promoting the movie.
Chris Walken.
And Chris Walken, freaking everybody. And they can't until the strike's over. And so they're considering moving it back along with other titles like The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And
gosh, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, I didn't even say the whole thing. So yeah, it's controversial, and there's no confirmation because Warner Brothers and Legendary own Dune, and so Warner Brothers kind of wants to do it. And from what I currently had when I made the video, Legendary has not been approached or made a decision on if they're going to delay it yet. So maybe not delayed, but there's definitely a desire to delay it.